Hi, my name is Celeste, and I'm the producer of SilverLens, the documentary film program at Blair. I'm so excited to bring you films made by Blair Network Communications and SilverLens students. First, let's take a look at Maggie, Clara, and Olivia's documentary about how local businesses have fared during the coronavirus shutdown.
On March 13, 2020, the United States declared a national emergency due to the coronavirus outbreak. Schools, workplaces, hospitals, and thousands of other establishments were affected. Small businesses function at the heart of communities all across the U.S., bringing growth and development to local and countrywide industries and helping build community culture. The lockdown has affected everything and everyone for several months now, but for smaller, local, or family-owned businesses, this has been disastrous. How have the businesses you may know and love stayed afloat? So how has coronavirus affected business?
It affected the business in general terms, as everyone can expect. We've lost business.
You have staff that are definitely concerned to come back to work, as well as clients who are also concerned to come in to enclosed spaces, which in turn does affect your profit margin of what are you making, because you don't have as many clients coming through the door or staff.
People's mental state, it's affected incredibly, like myself and my wife and my brother, just being stressed out with having to worry all the time.
Despite the wide range of small businesses and the services they provide, the strain that the pandemic has put on business has been universal.
When the shutdown came initially, of course, we shut down also. During that time, I had to think about how to pivot so that we would have something to come back to, because it's not just me and the fact that, you know, this is my life and it's all that I have, but it's all the people who work for me. How do I sustain this so that everybody has a job to come back to?
We ended up having to switch to carry out completely and to online ordering. So we had to sort of change our business model overnight.
Immediately, a lot of our jobs went on pause, and so that affected our revenue. Also, the companies that we had invoices out to, they also were paused because they weren't bringing in revenue, so that affected payments that were coming into us as well.
Of course, there have been many safety precautions that are mandatory for businesses to run these days.
Everybody is masked in the kitchen, everybody is 6 feet apart, temperatures are taken every day, hands are washed. There are acrylic shields in between staff and customers. We're no longer offering samples. We used to give out samples all the time, and we don't do that so that there's less of an opportunity for physical contact. And in the shops, of course, we have the stickers on the floor that keep people 6 feet apart.
As stylists, we do disinfect and clean all the stations and chairs in between every client, and periodically our hard surfaces like our stations and doorknobs and anything that can be in contact.
We also had to think about our number one priority, which is the safety of our team and our staff. And so immediately we had to transition a very highly technical business with very expensive equipment and set everybody up in their homes.
To keep everyone safe and to continue with as much business as possible, we've stuck with carryout, which has been a revenue decrease for us, but the community has supported us.
But small businesses have been taking drastic hits because of the limitations of prioritizing safety.
Everything's going up in price, and gloves are becoming having a shortage. So the cost of having to use gloves all the time is becoming a little bit expensive.
We work a shorter week, we work fewer hours, but we still have rent, we still have utilities. The diminished payroll is challenging.
I guess the biggest challenge is sometimes people forget masks, so you normally but I've done the same thing, so you normally have to just remind them as they come in, they will run out. But we also keep masks here. We have disposable ones that we can offer them too.
The biggest stress, I think, has to be is enforcing and self-policing. There are some people that just don't give a hoot about it, and they think it's the biggest BS in the world. And having to argue with them about the simplest thing and saying, like, listen, if you all move the table closer together, and an inspector comes by, or one of these volunteers that inspect restaurants, we can get in trouble and fined, and it's going to hurt our business, or they temporarily close us.
Actually, we have one employee who refuses to work during the virus, so he hasn't worked since March. So we're doing a lot more business with less people, but we're making it.
In the first few months of the lockdown, the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, provided small businesses with a business stimulus that was designed to keep them afloat for a little while. Whether that money was enough, however, is up for debate.
We took the PPP loan that the government had offered. We applied for that. That was a crazy process in itself, but that was extremely helpful to get us through the first couple of weeks that were highly uncertain.
Large companies got enormous amounts of money, and small companies got very small amounts of money, if any at all. What they gave us was minimal, and it's very scary right now because, it's just about gone.
We did receive some PPP funds. It has helped sustain the business. And to be fair, we are also open. So we are generating some of our own revenue. Has it been enough? It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell how long this is going to go on for us.
Businesses are expecting to go through many months of this, but for lots of local establishments, this is the end of the line. As of late September, roughly 100,000 small businesses have shut down permanently. Some shops that have been running for more than 50 years are closing their doors for good.
I know a lot of small businesses, in the sense of restaurants and things like that, are struggling a lot more.
The restaurants are like dribbling back, maybe one every 2 weeks, and half of what they used to order, but a lot of them are gone forever. They just couldn't survive.
One of the best things about running your own business is that you're in charge and you get to make all the decisions. And the worst thing about running your own business is that you're in charge and you get to make all the decisions.
I think it's a lot harder for small businesses because they don't have as many resources. Staff is smaller. Obviously, the money is, smaller. We don't have like a corporate entity to reach out to figure out like all these, what are your COVID protocols?
That's why you're seeing a lot of smaller companies closing down, and larger companies can survive. They can lobby Congress. They can prove that by their demise, it will hurt the economy on such a massive scale as one company.
We're always here, and we're a large one that might be corporate controlled, and you have different employees all the time. So I think people like coming in to see us.
The country is still in a state of limbo, but are business owners ready for this to continue, or even once it's over, to come back?
I think that we are ready to trust what we've learned, and we would be ready to implement it pretty quickly if this were to surge again.
I don't think I would be emotionally prepared. I think the only thing that allows us to be emotionally prepared for this is the hope that it will soon be more manageable than it is.
I think we've all learned to be prepared for things like this, but it is still scary in the business sense of we will still have to pay rent and pay bills and things like that. I think in a situation like this, it's always a learning curve. You're always going to learn new things.
We know more what to do. We've already started planning on trying to basically squeeze out maybe an extra seat or two inside, and then also bring back delivery because that was helpful. Are we fully prepared and wanting it to happen? No. But will we have an idea of what we're getting ourselves into? Yes, very much.
The coronavirus's effect on the economy is described by the International Monetary Fund as the greatest economic recession since the Great Depression. Larger corporations are surviving and even finding ways to profit off of the pandemic, but smaller businesses have found themselves in over their heads. Every closing of a local business is not only a blow to the national economy, but it's also the conclusion of a narrative that contributes to the people in its community. Our society would be a completely different place without them, and now more than ever, they need our support.
We all say it, support local producers, support local businesses. It's a very painful time.
It requires, to stay successful during this, it's just a mentality shift of understanding that change creates opportunity. And so if you don't have that mentality as a business, if you're stuck to an old way of doing something and that's what you've been doing, you won't be set up to succeed when everything changes on a dime.
Yes, final thoughts. Wear your mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, don't be stupid.
Our filmmakers have the unique opportunity to see how the coronavirus impacted our community. Let's see from Sammy how the coronavirus impacted animal shelters.
During COVID-19, shelters in and outside of Maryland have been severely hit. we're limiting the number of people who can be in our buildings at any one time. And so obviously that limits the amount of animals that we can provide care to.
This has caused quite a holdup in terms of people looking to adopt, like Rachel Schaefer.
I went through 10 months of trying to get a dog.
Due to COVID precautions, the public is no longer allowed to visit the inside of the animal shelters. However, shelters are looking into alternative options.
So we started a program on Fridays called Fun for a Friday, and anybody can Zoom in, and for 30 minutes we just show fosters and adopters.
We have an online adoption portal where basically you go to mdspca.org/adopt and you can see all of the animals who are currently up for adoption.
Additionally, the final exchange of the animals is done socially distanced.
For instance, with a dog, we will have a 10-foot leash so that we're not within 6 feet of each other.
Given all of these extra measures, the original thought was that shelters would be less busy. However, this is the opposite of the case.
The animals we do have are going very quickly, I mean, honestly, as quickly as I've ever seen them go.
You know, while everyone's at home doing virtual school and a lot of people are working remotely, it's just like a really good time for people to adopt pets.
And the adoptions of the animals are not the only thing that people have taken to.
Because everybody was home, lots of people signed up to be foster homes. In just a few weeks, we had 1,000 applications.
One of the dangers of this massive increase in adoptions is the possible returning of animals once the COVID situation dies down.
It's always a risk during any temporary situation that you're going to see returns. And so what we try to do is just get on the same page with potential adopters.
So far, shelters have not seen higher rates of animals returned, but they're keeping an eye on it and watching it closely. For BNC, I'm Sammy Fry. The 2020 elections were unlike any other due to the unprecedented number of Americans who voted, in spite of the threat of COVID-19. The final count puts the number at just over 160 million, the highest voter turnout rate since 1900.
Voting is the one thing American citizens can do to make sure we get what we need going forward.
COVID required extra special precautions to be taken this year to protect voters and election workers from infection.
We wore masks. We had plexiglass in between us and every voter that came in.
Everyone coming in was getting escorted with hand sanitizer.
For lines and things like that, they were all, X's like 6 feet apart on the ground, so people was really clear where people should go.
On election day, voters would go to different stations that were set up the night beforehand. First, they would go to an initial election worker at the poll books.
So at the poll book, we would actually look them up in the system, confirm with them their name, their birth date, their address.
Next, they would go to another worker who would give them their ballot according to their precinct.
Particularly on the balloting side, we had to have 250 different ballots available so that anybody who came in across the county, that their exact ballot was ready for them.
The next station would direct people to either paper or electronic ballot booths.
I found a lot of older people liked the paper because they were used to it.
Once they finished voting, they would put their ballot into the scanner.
On the way out, of course, your I voted sticker.
Applying to become an election judge is a fairly simple process. You go to your state's voter information website, then click on Election Workers. After that, you'll fill out some information, and it's straightforward from there. So Blazers, don't forget about election judging. Maybe give it a try next election. For BNC, I'm Sammy Fry.
One area that the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely impacted is college admissions and testing. Let's take a look in this documentary by Bridget and Simran.
In 2017, students submitted over 10.2 million college applications in the United States, with almost 17 million enrolled as undergraduate students. The process of making a college list, building a resume filled with extracurriculars, writing essays, and submitting an application has become a common rite of passage for many high schoolers around the country. However, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the college admissions process not only for the class of 2021, but for all future applicants. Recently, many colleges have closed their campuses, meaning that prospective students don't have the opportunity to experience an in-person tour or get a feeling of what it's like to attend the university.
So it's all either virtual through meeting the representative, or you have to do a virtual tour on their website. You're not really getting a feel of the school. You're not really going there to see what they have.
Another big change to this year's college admissions process is standardized testing. In 2018, over 2 million students took the SAT. This year, due to COVID-19, testing centers have had to close or limit their capacity, prohibiting many students from taking either the ACT or the SAT. While both organizations have done their best to expand testing dates and locations, the health concerns of many students still prevent them from taking the test.
In some of the most affected areas, we created pop-up test sites. And what we meant by that was we worked with either hotels or local community centers to create a pop-up site. So that way, if our regular test centers were not comfortable opening and they made the decision to close, we could still offer a testing opportunity in those areas that were most affected.
The truth is that there's no test score that's worth risking a human life, either the lives of teenage test takers or of the adults, the teachers and guidance counselors and school staff who would have to proctor the test.
Our current admission system, with test scores, GPAs, and ideally long list of extracurriculars, has started to change, both positively and negatively.
With the pandemic, with the racial unrest that we've had in our country and continue to have, I think it really has accelerated, in a good way, accelerated this conversation about what should we be looking at in college admissions.
First, many studies have shown that a student's standardized test scores are more representative of the student's socioeconomic class over their intelligence or likelihood of succeeding in college, compared to high school GPA, which has been shown to be a much more accurate predictor.
There's a stronger correlation between SAT scores and family income than there is between SAT scores and first-year grades.
A lot of the times what the history has shown with standardized testing, like the SAT and ACT, are that it's not showcasing the strengths of students of color. There's always been somewhat of a disparity there.
But the test is not supposed to be a measure of looking backward and seeing who had opportunity. It's supposed to be a predictor looking forward, forecasting who can succeed in college, and it does a poor job of that.
Several colleges have decided to go either test optional or test blind. Test optional schools allow applicants to decide whether or not to submit their test scores, while test blind schools do not look at any of their applicants' scores.
We chose to go test optional last year. We had been looking at it for a couple years actually, so we've done a lot of research to see how at McAllister test scores that we've been receiving actually predict academic success at McAllister, and we've seen that for the most part it's not all that predictive.
A lot of schools, even across the United States, have decided to be test optional for this application season and this admissions process, just because they know a lot of the tests were canceled in the summertime, and they know they're still being canceled now, so they don't want to add that stress on to students.
Prior to the pandemic, say at the beginning of March of 2020, there are about 1,070 four-year schools that were test optional, and one, Hampshire College, that was test blind. In the intervening now 7 months, another 550 colleges have dropped their admissions testing requirements, and about 60 more have gone completely test blind.
Beyond adding a level of stress to students who are taking the test, the value placed on scores can deter otherwise capable applicants who would have been a good fit for the university.
You know, for us, a big reason we were looking at that in the first place was so that we could, be a more accessible and inclusive place.
In general, schools that go test optional get a broader range of applications. They get more academic talent in their applicant pool, and they get more diversity of all sorts. It enriches the applicant pool in many ways simply by taking down that barrier
On the other hand, some might say taking away test scores might further imbalance the playing field, as the attention will turn to the number of AP courses a student has, the number of high-profile awards they might have received, number of leadership positions, or how many community service organizations they're a member of.
Where a student might not have the best GPA or might not have access to rigorous courses, just by maybe it's an urban school or a rural school that doesn't provide that, and the ACT can really help paint that larger picture and give a better predictability of where that student can be successful. But our research, as well as other research, shows that when you mix multiple measures like GPA and a college entrance exam, the ability to predict whether a student will be successful increases greatly.
Even so, the test makers have continued to defend their college entrance exams despite claims of inequity.
I see ACT sees us not as, we aren't showing inequities. The ACT is not biased in any way, shape, or form. What the ACT is showing is that there are educational inadequacies in our socioeconomic status of our students.
In either scenario, it is important that universities take into account both the benefits and detriments of using standardized testing scores as part of their application for both students and the school itself. Shifting away from this traditional system of admissions forces colleges to use new creative ways to get to know students.
Beyond that are a host of non-cognitive factors, non-academic factors, and the University of Maryland has been a leader in researching this kind of stuff, that self-discipline, drive, ability to work with others, creativity, none of those are measured by standardized tests. But they are demonstrated in many ways by what a person has done outside the classroom.
Other schools have conducted interviews with students over Zoom or asked students to create short videos of themselves answering different questions.
In terms of grades, though they're a better predictor than the test, even better would be a portfolio of the work that a student has done in high school. There are a number of groups experimenting with that kind of information, trying to figure out technology ways to collect that and make it available to information offices.
Mastery Transcript Consortium is an organization that partners with high schools looking to reimagine how they grade and assess students.
The last few years, we have worked to co-develop the Mastery Transcript with our member schools. So this interactive transcript that we've created with them is really a response to the needs and requests of schools that are looking to do teaching and learning very differently.
Mastery transcripts break down skills and content matter that the students have mastered instead of just listing GPA and grades. They also give descriptions of these skills and samples of the students' work.
And so really what was necessary and what is necessary is this interactive transcript that really reflects the full scope, not just the academic, but the social, emotional, and behavioral supports of students, but also be able to send that as a communication piece, as a story to colleges and universities and employers and others to say, this is all that I've done, and this is what I'm capable of doing, this is what I'm passionate about. The long-term effects of COVID, again, from my vantage point, is that colleges and high schools will take the time to really listen to their students, listen to their communities, and find better ways of engaging and honoring where our students come from.
While concerns about standardized testing and the college admissions process have always been there, COVID-19 has pushed many institutions to explore new options when it comes to accepting a broader range of students and understanding what they can bring to the school beyond the statistics. As colleges and applicants face new challenges, they also have new opportunities to reevaluate the college admissions process and the ways we can make it more equitable for all students.
Another local issue that Blair students have covered is the construction of the Purple Line. Here's Nathaniel with more.
The Purple Line will heavily impact the commutes of Blair students and the greater Silver Spring community, extending from New Carrollton in Prince George's County passing through College Park and Silver Spring, terminating in Bethesda. This will connect East County to West County via rail, with the highest concentration of stops located in Silver Spring, running along Wayne Avenue. In the community, there will be stations at Long Branch, Piney Branch Road, Manchester Place, Dale Drive, the Silver Spring Library, Silver Spring Station, and Woodside. This will make the commute for students living in the Tacoma Park area in West County much easier, allowing them to hitch a ride on the bus downtown and get on the Purple Line to their neighborhood. At the moment, the only mode of transportation that students can take to get from one side of the county to the other is the bus, which is often unreliable and can take over an hour to get on in some cases. For current sophomores and freshmen, this will become a reality if the project is finished on time, likely by 2022 or 2023.
In September, Judge Jeffrey M. Geller allowed the contractors building the Purple Line, a $2 billion light rail project connecting Bethesda to New Carrollton via Silver Spring, to quit. Under their contract with the state, the construction group, known as the Purple Line Transit Partners, had the right to exit the project if the 15-mile link was delayed by over 1 year. And that's exactly what happened. As a result of lawsuits from homeowners in affluent communities, environmental concerns, and design changes, the project ran behind schedule by 2.5 years and $519 million over budget. We talked to council member Evan Glass about the repercussions of this decision and why everyone is frustrated.
Ever since Governor Hogan green-lighted the Purple Line, it has been beset with problems. There were lawsuits and construction delays, and ultimately it all came to a head over the summer when the coalition of construction companies and engineering firms that are building the 16-mile transportation line essentially said, we're done. And the governor and his team are left holding the bag. This is not a surprise to me because on the county council, I've been asking the state and the Purple Line partners, where are we on the schedule? Where are we with the budget? And every time I asked them those questions, they were never able to give me an answer.
Just days after our interview with Glass, the Maryland Department of Transportation had taken control of the contracts, which means construction will resume shortly. Annapolis's takeover creates certainty that it will be completed eventually, but the state has not said when it will be finished, a crushing reality to students hoping to ride the Purple Line in the near future.
Thanks to all of our filmmakers for that amazing coverage. To see more from Blair Network Communications and SilverLens, click on the link below. Thank you and see you next time.